And now something completely different.
Good afternoon. I'm speaking to you live just outside
I like to think balding is just God's way of saying, now let's see you get laid.
Is it true that if you don't use it, you lose it?
What I'd really like to do is put the greatness of this man in perspective.
The hair loss community has a lot to be thankful for, having you as a spokesperson.
You mean you just call this guy up?
About life and about reality.
And now, America's #1 reality radio show for men. Live from Los Angeles, it's Spencer Kobren's The Bald Truth.
Hey guys, welcome to the show. 888-659-3727 is the toll-free number. Give us a call here at The Bald Truth if you have any questions, concerns about your hair loss. Believe it or not, guys, if you're just tuning in for the first time, this is the hair loss show. So that's why I'm saying if you have any questions or concerns about your hair loss, this is your safe place. Now, I know it seems strange if you're new to the show, if you're listening on iTunes Radio or on iHeartRadio, which I guess is iHeartMedia now. If you are listening on Stitcher, if you're just tuning into this broadcast via the GFQ network, or if you happen to stumble upon The Bald Truth or any of the other streaming locations that you can find this broadcast, or if you're listening to us in the future through a podcast, look, this is a hair loss show where we're not selling anything. I've been doing this broadcast going on 20 years. I'm a consumer advocate for men and women dealing with hair loss. I am the author of The Bald Truth and The Truth About Women's Hair Loss. These are not ebooks. Not that there's anything wrong with ebooks, but both published by major publishers, most read books on the subject of the prevention and treatment of hair loss in the world. Also happen to be the founder of the International Alliance of Hair Restoration Surgeons. And we're not here to charge you for this broadcast. We're not here to sell you any products or services. On the contrary, we are here to provide you with a safe place to vent, to learn about what products and services might actually help you with your hair loss. And, honestly, to kind of just give you a platform to discuss living life as a hair loss sufferer. Now, as guys, 2/3 of us by the age of 35 will be dealing with some degree of hair loss. That's just the way that it is. 2/3 by 35. By the age of 21, about 20% of hair loss sufferers, men dealing with androgenetic alopecia or common male pattern baldness, start to see the initial signs. 40% of hair loss sufferers, and I'm talking about common hair loss, again, same as men, androgenetic alopecia or androgenic alopecia, depending on who you speak with or what book you read it in. 40% are women. So this is a silent epidemic of tremendous proportions. This is not a niche market. This is not an infomercial discussing hair loss and trying to, sway you in one direction or another. This is a platform for men and women dealing with an issue that society doesn't allow us to deal with in general. Doesn't allow us to really speak about. It's like the last bastion of political incorrectness to this day. This is your safe place. It's a live broadcast, so I'm going to give out the phone number, 888-659-3727. I want you guys to give me a call. I am not here alone, by the way, even though I'm the only person you're going to actually be seeing if you're watching this broadcast, because we still don't have our Skype video from our other studio hooked up yet for whatever reason. There's a lot of reasons. But we do have Joe Tillman live via audio in our studios in Vancouver, British Columbia. Joe, how are you, man?
I feel like I've done something wrong.
You're not in the dunce corner. I'm sorry.
I feel like I've done something. It's like second week in a row, dude.
Yeah, dude. Sadly, as you know, life has been very eventful. And I
moved to a new studio. It's going to be great. Yeah.
Very eventful, and unfortunately, things have not gone as planned.
They really do.
Yeah, but listen, the truth is we're here. We're getting the broadcast out there. The vast majority of people actually listen to the broadcast anyway. I like doing the video, aspect of the broadcast. People like to see us. It adds a different dimension. We were actually the first internet broadcasters to really be able to do high-def video. Now it's more common because there are services like Facebook Live and guys who are, putting content out there, live content out there, because, it's kind of like building a website years ago. Now, it was like you really had to know what you're doing. Now it's just kind of like, click and drag and you have a website.
It's kind of cool to be, I won't say groundbreakers, but to be the first to do things. And, it's like you were the first to do some things. I was the first to do some things. We don't really get recognition for it, but it's kind of cool to look at other people doing the same thing and be able to say to yourself, I was the first.
It is.
Cool.
Well, I can tell you that, doing this broadcast for 20 years, we were the first radio broadcast to take the internet seriously. So very early on, back in 1998, the first year I started to broadcast this show on the radio, I was doing a live simulcast on the internet when no one was listening to anything on the internet. So we were, I was working with a company, and let me see if I can remember this company. I think they're still around, called Surfer Network. And it was like groundbreaking stuff. Radio stations didn't even want to do it because they didn't know how to monetize it. And my whole thought was, how can you not monetize the internet? I mean, it's all about getting your content out there in any way possible. If I'm on the radio, that's great. We're getting a lot of listeners, a lot of people calling in. We have a huge reach in the markets that we're in. But wouldn't it be interesting if somebody from, Europe was able to listen to the show? And wouldn't it be interesting if, we could eventually build archives? So that's what we did. So from 1998 until I think 2001 or 2002, radio had no problem with me airing the entire broadcast on my website.
Yeah, because they figured it can't be monetized, so put it out there.
Right.
At least get the exposure.
Well, no, they didn't even figure that. They didn't care. They thought it was just a waste of my time. They didn't think they were going to lose anything. They weren't concerned about their local ads. Then all of a sudden, I got the phone call. They were concerned because then they realized, wait a second, somehow Kobren is monetizing this. We're not making any fucking money from it.
Yeah, there's something wrong with this.
Yeah, and other people were starting to do what I was doing. So that's when we had to cut the live feed off, just do clips. And then I was able to go back and do a live feed through, what was it called? Stickam at the time.
Stickam. I remember that.
We put a video camera when I was in Westwood One Radio, one of the first real radio programs to do that. And, met Adversarian through there, and then the rest is history. But, the point is, I don't need credit for being one of the first or being one of the pioneers. It is cool, but what I love about doing this broadcast from, your own studio, running everything yourself, not having to worry about transmitters, not having to worry about, salespeople and radio stations, and not having to worry about all the bullshit, is you have complete control. And it's a type of control that if you understand how to utilize it, you don't have to sell ads the old school way. Everyone's still doing that. Guys who are actually still making money or making money currently in this space are still trying to use the radio sales model to make a living from doing what they're doing. And while that works if you already have a really big name in radio, it doesn't work for most people.
Right.
So my whole thing is just get the content out there. The money follows. But you don't have to sell products or services that are related to what you do.
And that's the thing about the web in general. The constant from the beginning up to now and for the foreseeable future are the 3 C's: content, content, content.
Right.
Nothing else. No other trick. Well, I take that back. The tricks that have come have also gone because they're all temporary.
Yeah.
nothing has superseded the three C's, and I don't see how anything will.
Well, the tricks are black hatting shit. All these guys who really did a lot of black hatting lost their ranking.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying is that they come and go. It's like all the black. It's like I remember, one really cool trick was to get a thumbnail of your YouTube video for a particular keyword on the first page of Google. It used to be really easy and it was like really powerful. But then it's like for every new gap that the black hatters make in the algorithm, they just patch it within a couple months and it's done.
Look, in any business, in any realm of trying to develop anything, trying to game the system never works. In the long run, it never works. It always hurts you. And there are guys out there in this industry who've tried to game the system. There's a guy who is a big panderer in the online forum world, a doctor, who has tried to game the system forever. And not too long ago, because he had people gaming the system.
I think he defined how to game the system from a doctor's perspective.
Right. But he's also tried to game the system through, doing things through SEO, links, things like that. All of a sudden, Google changed their algorithm. Huge panic. I never forget. Yeah. This guy's webmaster was contacting us. We had no idea. They had hired somebody to throw like links on all over our message forum through different posts. So they had thousands of links that had to be removed. Otherwise they wouldn't get their Google ranking back or actually be indexed by Google again. Yeah. And, we had no problem, doing that. But it's like I had no idea this was going on because there's so many thousands of posts that are done. So they were just trying to rig the system using any possible variation of, on the message forums, probably, I'm not saying they are, purchasing links, things like that. This is a fucking doctor. So I actually think this is a good point. You know what's happening to all forms of medicine, but especially cosmetic surgery? It has become instead of a battle of good surgery, instead of a battle of, who really is the most skilled, the most ethical, putting out the best work, it has become a battle of the best looking website, the most visible website, and the best SEO.
Yep.
And
absolutely.
That is what has, until recently, it still does, but I mean, it's actually things are changing. That is what has won the game. And that is what, in my view, a lot of these idiots have been concentrating on, as opposed to building social proof, just getting their content out there on a consistent basis, the right way, the honest way. There are guys out there who are now, because they can't be a part of, certain organizations and certain things that, provide the social proof. They're trying to attempt to destroy that social proof in the eyes of physicians and shit like that. That can't work. That's been tried before.
Well, it can't work, especially when it's like you can't walk into a club and say, hey, I want to be a part of your club, get turned down and then turn around and badmouth the club to everyone. It's like
that's happened to you. That's happened to you, man. It's happened to me too.
It's like, hey, can I be a part of your group? Thanks, but no thanks.
Hey, you guys
suck anyway.
You are the greatest thing since sliced bread. I have never met anybody. Me and you together will take over the fucking world. And
I'll make you a millionaire.
Yeah, and you're like, you know what? I'm really not interested in working with you, Doc. And then all of a sudden, you are the fucking devil.
Number one.
Yeah,
the devil.
You are in this guy's crosshairs.
I'm a scumbag.
But that is not that's not atypical. I mean, that's the very common. Well, I'm not going to say it's a common thread amongst a lot of doctors, but I would say that this particular doctor, that has been a theme throughout his career, at least since I've been in this industry, which is 20 years. Now, we're not here to name names, but the point is when consumers are online, they're on the message forums, when they're on my message forum, when they're on other message forums, they have to understand that if there are doctors out there that are really taking so much time to pander to you, and I mean like put shit out there, spending it's one thing to answer basic questions, provide you with real science and real data, stuff that has been collected not just, in your fucking back room in some house somewhere, but I'm talking about real scientific data on whatever you're asking about, whether it's follicular unit extraction, FUT, whether it's PRP, whether it's PRP with A cell. There is some real data out there. But, what consumers have to watch out for are those who really take the time to pander to them, who make it as though they're doing you a fucking favor to answer the question. Make it it as though they are somehow, leading a charge of, the charge of righteousness. When in fact, and this is a fact, there are physicians out there who will put out completely unverifiable, phony statistics based on studies that they have done in their own practice. They will claim that the methodologies that they use are far superior than some of their colleagues, with absolutely no facts to back that up. But because they become such a familiar part, and they kind of create this narrative online and get involved with these extremely vulnerable kids, mostly kids, in some cases, they're embraced. And these vulnerable kids are like, oh my God, this guy's spending so much time with me. He must really care. The only reason he's on the fucking forum to begin with is to make money, guys.
He really cares because he's, honestly, usually when that happens, it means that they don't have surgery scheduled for the day, and they're trying to book surgeries.
That's actually a good point.
Well,
there are some doctors who will come on and just like say, hey, well, I'll answer this question about minoxidil. I'll answer this question about FUE, something that interests them. But the guys that spend a tremendous amount of time, physicians, I'm not talking about their reps. I'm not talking about someone who's working with the physician in their clinic. I'm talking about the physicians themselves. They have a lot of time on their hands.
No, that's true. And here's a tip for people that do read the forums and do look forward to posts by doctors. Look, if you see a post by a doctor, and it can be one of these leading the charge against corruption doctors, that's in air quotes, look at the time of day that the quote was, or the post was made. If it was at 2 a.m., their local time, and it's more than a paragraph in length, you have to wonder, was there actually a patient scheduled for that same day later on, and is he getting enough sleep?
Yeah.
Or did he have anything scheduled to begin with?
Was there possibly any drinking involved?
If it's either scenario, it's both cases are bad.
Right.
Because he doesn't have the business to keep himself busy, and if he does have the business, he's putting that patient in jeopardy by being on forums at 2 a.m.
And it's important. We are being a little cryptic, but the truth is, I think what is important for the listener, the guys who are tuning in either for the first time, the guys who are longtime forum users, the guys who are utilizing the forum right now to try to make a decision on something that's going to be as life-altering as cosmetic surgery. They have to understand where the information comes from. And I have to tell you, I own the most trafficked hair transplant forum in the world. And I can say that with confidence because we have no back end. And the vast majority of people's traffic comes from the back end. This is you talk about transparent. This is a real transparent forum that's moderated. Anything that's being said is said publicly, not behind the scenes. There is no possibility for physicians or sales representatives to private message anybody and try to get that sale, or product and service providers who use these PMs, these back end PMing. What are they called? PMing,
PMing,
private messaging aspects of the site. There's another word for it, but to essentially either badmouth their colleagues, sell a product, act as though they are not working for a company, guide people in the direction that they want to be guided. That's what private messaging is about. Now, There's a lot of naivete out there. A lot of guys say, well, private messaging is important. We want to be able to communicate amongst ourselves privately. There's no reason for that. There really is no reason for that. It makes the forum that you are using less safe. So if something can't be communicated publicly, then you probably don't want that information. And that's, you know, I don't know how you feel about that, Joe.
Well, I understand the need for, you know, people to be able to reach out to each other so they can have like more of a personal connection for support.
Right.
But I think that the bad outweighs the good in this scenario, because I've actually read some comments recently on one of the forums. I forgot which one it was, where they were talking about how the private message system of the forum, they were getting spammed.
Yeah.
By doctors' representatives and even people that had nothing to do with the industry. It was just people registering for accounts to sell their products.
And that's what it's used for, man. People think that it's great. You know, you have the opportunity to reach out. It gives it more of a sense of community. Reach out to people who are dealing with the same situation as you are. Maybe connect with someone locally who's gone to a doctor that you're considering, but you don't know who the fuck that is. So in some cases, it could be positive, and you may make that connection. But honestly, understanding the back end of the form and seeing what transpires, I know that 75% of that, and that is probably being generous. It could be more. 75% of the back end
conservative.
Yeah, conservative. Yeah, thank you. The back end communication is all sales. It's all sales, and it's bullying, it's sales, it's spam, it's just, you know, nonsense and drama. But a lot of that goes on. You know, a lot of people spend hours on the site, not even posting publicly, but just using the private messaging system. So, listen, I'm not saying that you shouldn't use a forum that has private messaging. I'm just saying that, you know, if you do, I would not take anything that I receive in a private message seriously, whether it's from a moderator. If a moderator of a website, honestly, PMs you about some shit, not a good sign. Everything should be done publicly.
Unless it's about terms of service or stuff like that, or
why? Why not make, if there's an issue with if someone makes a post publicly and the moderator is concerned about what they did and it is against their terms of service, that should be made public for everyone to see.
Or both.
You broke the fucking rule.
Yeah, no, I get it. And ultimately, you know,
well,
like
we'll
said,
put it this way. Every forum, I mean, we have the opportunity to contact every member on the forum privately. But there's no private messaging system where users can connect to each other. Right.
No, I get it. I know that. But no, in general, I don't like the idea of it, simply because, you know, and this is something I wasn't really aware of, even when I was on a forum that did have private messaging. I didn't really use it that much, and I wasn't aware. I mean, being, you know, a clinical representative at the time, I wasn't aware of all the spam centric traffic that was going on in the background to begin with. And it wasn't until other users were telling me this that I realized what was going on.
Yeah. I've had people say, you know, and they've actually come on our site publicly and said, and people privately contacting me saying as soon as they get on certain websites, hair transplant reps are trying to sell them. The Turkish reps now are just, I mean, they're taking over the back ends of these sites.
Yeah, they're getting out of control. And just to change the subject here real quick, there's a question in the chat room. How can I get an HT doctor to allow me to meet his patients to see results? I did a consult with a doctor, and he just said, look at the pics on the website. I want to see the product in person on a patient with similar hair and Norwood scale to make a decision about the surgery. I think that is a perfectly legitimate and even necessary required question on your part. And my view on this, my feeling is that if a doctor is telling you just look at the pics on the website, you might want to consider looking at other doctors.
Well, first of all, I also ask, are those your actual pics on the website? because a lot of guys who just say, just look at the pics on the website aren't even, well, not a lot, but there are guys out there who are just not even using their own pics. And
True.
any doctor worth their salt, at minimum, has a list of patients who have already agreed to speak with and meet with other patients in the area. That's just marketing 101 in this industry.
Yeah, and if you push the issue and they say, well, it violates patient confidentiality, it doesn't if they got permission to begin with. Patients, I mean, the clinics I've worked at in the past have forms specifically for that purpose for patients to sign, saying yes, you can give out my phone number or you can give out my email address, or both. And I'm happy to speak to.
There is not a plastic surgeon, cosmetic surgeon, hair transplant surgeon, which is a cosmetic surgeon, who has any type of really successful practice. I'm talking about success, meaning that they're helping a lot of people as well, that cannot give you at least 5 patients to call, minimum to call. Usually you can meet with 1 or 2 patients. Now, if I was going to get a facelift or some shit, there's no way in hell, and to me, it's just as serious, and people don't take it as seriously for whatever reason. There's no way in hell I would not want to meet patients. I would not want to see patients before I got cut. There's no difference when it comes to hair transplantation. So Joe is completely right. We've been saying this for a long time. You have to meet patients. Now, do most guys do that?
No.
Or listen to us and do that? They don't. So that it is, that's your choice. To me, you're not doing your due diligence unless you have at least spoken to a verified patient.
This goes back to what we're talking about with doctors offering procedures or studies and things like this where they don't have any verifiable evidence or a body of evidence and photos and video to back up what they're saying. For instance, if a doctor is saying, chest hair is a great donor resource, I've had great results with it. Awesome. I would love to see some pictures, or I would love to meet some patients. I think it's incumbent upon doctors if they're making claims about their results or procedures that they're performing or, any sort of stats that they've come up with studies, show it. Publish the actual data. If you used 15 patients, let's see the parameters of those patients. What qualified them to be in the study? If you're doing the procedure, chest hair, things like that.
Let's just be frank. Let's be candid and honest with these listeners. The vast majority of studies that are done in this industry they're crap. They're not really duplicatable studies. They are done in-house in a hair transplant physician's practice. It is not what you would consider a real controlled study. And really, what a lot of these guys do is they do these studies. They possibly can get a grant from the ISHRS, or they just do them themselves. So then they could write, and I call it an article. They may say it's a paper, an article for like the Hair Transplant Forum International, and then claim that they're published. Or maybe they'll be able to get published in Derm Surge, but with all due respect, I don't think that's the most difficult journal, peer-reviewed journal, to be published in. I could be wrong, even though I think I'm right, but it's possible. And so people just have this list. They put in their CV. They put out these studies, and then they're the guys who did the fucking study. And then idiots go online. And I'm sorry to say it, but we've all been naive. I was naive to this at one point myself, and they believe all the hype. They believe that this is the guy to go to because he conducted all the studies or he's written all the papers. Now, I think it's great. It's important, I believe, to try to get published in legitimate journals. But because this is still considered kind of a fringe discipline of plastic surgery or cosmetic surgery, it's not as easy to decipher what is a truly peer-reviewed controlled study that makes sense, as opposed to what's kind of like this little tiny study that they kind of just did for marketing.
Yeah.
And it's a difficult thing. Even I'm confused sometimes. But what I'm not confused about is you can see with your eyes. You can see results. You can go online and you can read complaints. You can learn from other patients who've had experience with these doctors. When it comes to getting PRP or, and all this stuff, there really are only a handful of guys, I believe, who have had, consistent success. But anyone who's out there that is claiming they are better than the rest, they have no fucking clue. They really don't. They're making claims that are false. Now, I can say who's getting better results. We have the database, but these guys can't say it. And anyone who goes out there and waves a flag to say that they're better than everybody else, I've always said this, and my dad taught me this. I actually saw this in a movie as well, years later, in the movie American Gangster. But my dad told me this many years ago as a kid, that the loudest guy in the room is the weakest.
And those are very wise words, because they certainly do apply to this industry.
100%. Let me get out the phone number, 888-659-3727. We just had 2 lines lit. Guys, call back. We will take your calls. Phone number, 888-659-3727. I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will take your phone calls, answer your questions. You have any questions or concerns about your hair loss, please, we're doing a live show. Do not hesitate to call us. And if you are considering surgical hair restoration, this may be an opportunity of a lifetime to really get the information you need to take the next step. And that next step might be to do nothing. We'll be right back.
He's an international best-selling author, a contributing editor for Consumer Digest magazine, and the host of the longest-running reality radio show for men. I'd say he's the man.
And the truth shall set you free!
It's Spencer Kobren's The Bald Truth.
Hey guys, welcome back. 888-659-3727. Give us a call here at The Bald Truth. We are live on the internet, on iHeart Media, which is iHeartRadio. We're also live on iTunes Radio, Stitcher Radio. What is that noise? Is that my computer? That is weird. Let me close it. Stitcher Radio, and of course, Guys from Queens Network, The Bald Truth. We are on Daily Motion. You can actually watch archive broadcasts of this show through GFQ on their website and on YouTube. What is that sound? I think it was my computer. It's funny. There's GFQ gets a decent amount of views on their YouTube stuff, but I think it's because they put up 2 full hours that they don't get as much as I think that they should, because, their website kills and the amount of downloads from iTunes. I guess this is a 2-hour broadcast, and all their other stuff is an hour to 2 hours. People want to listen to it. You know, Joe?
I know.
Yeah.
But I can see how 2 hours would be a bit much.
Yeah. So I think for 2 hours of video, it's a little much. That is why we are now putting out clips on Bald Truth Talk. You can look on the forum. It's going to say Hair Transplant Show. And also, you're going to see it on the new IHRS website as well. So you can go to ihrs.org if you're considering surgical hair restoration. There's a tremendous amount of information on the website. It's a great place to research your physicians. Again, we provide a vetted tool for you guys to start your research. It is a starting point. Remember that. That is what, my plan was when I established the organization in 2001. And then things got all fucking twisted by other companies and other guys who came out and said, hey, wait a second, this is a really good idea. I could maybe make a lot of money putting something like this together. And then all of a sudden, it became a big fucking marketing scheme for people. as opposed to what it's supposed to be. Created an organization, established a group of guys who were doing hair transplant surgery right at the time, who believed in truth in advertising, who believed in honest marketing. And what happened? People came in, they ruined the shit. And now, at least some of the old school doctors, they were concerned about leads. They were concerned about this. Companies were coming in and websites coming in and saying, well, you know what? We can guarantee you leads. You come on, you come on board. We will make sure that hair transplant patients get, to your website or give you a call. We'll provide free online consultations, all that shit. Well, you know what? The IHRS doesn't do that. We are not here, and the organization that I established is not here to sell surgery. It's here to provide you with a safe place to do your research and know, listen, you don't have to sell surgery. That's my whole point. Surgery sells itself. I can try to talk 100 people out of surgery. Maybe two, I don't know, maybe more. Maybe 10% will say, you know what, that makes sense. Everyone else would be like, you know what, fuck it, I'll take a chance. I don't want to live this way. That's what I try to tell a lot of the guys in the industry. Stop trying to fucking sell yourself. You know what you need to sell? Honesty. If someone's not a candidate, don't try to just make them happy because they want to have a hair transplant.
Actually, I was talking to a guy today. He contacted me. He had some questions about his situation, and one of the first things he gave me a list of doctors he was considering, and one of the first things he says, well, now, and I know that you work for Dr. So-and-so, and I said, hold on, I don't work for anyone except for myself.
Right.
I said, I'm not going to try to talk you into having a surgery with this guy, because I'm going to try to talk you out of having surgery entirely.
Right.
And he was silent. He's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I would be happier if you don't have surgery. Just move on and not deal with this stuff, because it's never as easy and simple as anyone tries to make it seem.
Look, you're talking about earlier, pioneering in this field, and and what's so funny?
I hate that word.
Yeah, but that's what you were discussing. So the truth is, I started, and I use this phrase from the first show I ever did, and the phrase is, once you're cut, you're cut. There's no turning back. So this is a huge decision to make. And it's not that I'm saying that hair transplant surgery cannot change someone's life dramatically for the better, cannot have such a positive impact in their life that it's not well worth it, like yours, for instance.
Right.
And thousands of guys who have gone through the IHRS and other doctors who may not be a part of the IHRS. But everyone has to be aware of the entire scope and all the possible pitfalls. And one of the major pitfalls of this industry, and I'm going to repeat myself because this is on my brain today, when you speak to a doctor and they're bad-mouthing other doctors, doesn't matter how bad the other doctor's work is. There are ways to speak about what they do and about their approach and compare their approach to other approaches and also prove that their approach may be superior, more consistent as far as obtaining good results without going out there and trying to destroy someone's reputation. Because the guys who are doing that, in my view, again, the loudest guys in the room are the weakest. These are the guys who need the business the most. These are the guys who are not out to help you. They're out to help their pocketbooks. The guys who are online posting 3-page posts, in my view, are not out to help you. They're out to help their pocketbooks. They're out to pay for their boats and their ex-wives, and their, kids' tuition and everything else that they have to deal with in order to maintain the lifestyle that they built, that they probably shouldn't have built because they weren't good enough to build that lifestyle to begin with. We got a couple of phone calls. I don't know if you want to take one.
Let's grab one. Let's grab one.
Right, let's see who this is. Hey, man, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from? Hey, man.
This is Michael Scott. Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Hey, Michael.
Michael.
How are you?
Yeah. Oh, pretty good. Yeah, I just tuned in, so I don't really know the subject. Is this Spencer's show?
It is Spencer's show. I'm Spencer.
I'm Joe.
Oh, hey.
Are you listening or are you watching?
So basically I was just listening for a few minutes. What's the topic today? Is there a special topic, or can I ask some questions?
The topic is hair loss. So you could you could ask any question you want.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm going to put you on speaker for a second. Hold on one second.
It probably won't sound that great, but you can give it a shot.
Oh, hey, Spencer, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically I had some questions on Propecia.
Sure.
Yeah, and then, and this could be actually something you probably discussed before, but I haven't really listened to your show much. So,
well, here's the thing. I've been doing the same show for 20 years. It's the same show every week. It's people just asking questions about whatever it is they want to know about hair loss.
Okay. Yeah, so basically, Spencer, the first question I have is for Propecia. Have you noticed any difference or any feedback between the generic and the brand name?
We talk about that a lot, so you're right. And here's the thing. I know plenty of guys who start on generic finasteride, and they do very well on the product. The problem is, at least here in the States, and I know this is probably true for other parts of the world, you never know Canada, Europe. You never know what generic your pharmacy is going to be changing over to, if they're going to be changing, their generics, and if you're ever going to have any real consistency with the brand of generic. Now, every generic is going to have different fillers. So while the molecular makeup of the drug is supposed to be the same, just by changing, and again, I'm going to preface this by saying I'm not a doctor, but just by having different fillers and different coatings and things like of that nature, it can change the way, at least anecdotally, the way the drug or the generic reacts for that person. So, as an example, if you were using, say, Teva generic, which is an Israeli company, and you're doing really well on it, and then you switched over to an Indian generic because the particular pharmacy that you get your drugs from struck a better deal with this company to get generic finasteride, the next time you fill your prescription, you're going to get this Indian generic, which may be good, it may not be good. But there have been people who have switched generics, who were on one generic for years, and then all of a sudden they began to see an issue with their hair loss again. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it's because of the generic, but then they either found another pharmacy that had the generic they were using, got back on it, saw a reversal. So, I mean, I'm a brand whore based on the fact that I want to stay consistent. So
we want to remove as many question marks as possible when you're trying to stay on a consistency or stay on a consistent program of any kind. Remove as many variables as possible. And just to add to what Spencer was saying is when you're also dealing with generics, some of these generic companies, they're not dedicated to just making finasteride. They have a whole laundry list of other medications that they're mixing at their facilities, and because you don't know where it's coming from, you don't know if they've got the highest standards in place for washing out the mixer, and I'm using the term mixer generically, the mixer before they start the next batch of whatever else they're making, or if, as it was explained to me one time by a pharmacist, you don't know if, like say Merck Pharmaceuticals, they have these $800,000 machines that mix the finasteride, whereas in China they may be using an $80,000 machine that might not have the quite the same tolerances, or what's the word I'm looking for? Just standards. That
parameters.
It might, parameters. Thank you. That it might not be quite exactly the same thing as far as the molecular makeup as well. So again, it comes down to the variables that you can eliminate generic versus name brand?
I will tell you one of my biggest fears is that Merck decides to stop producing finasteride or Proscar. It's been around for a long time. There are drugs that have been that are very expensive, that are sold as generic, that have been around for 40, 50 years, that the manufacturers are still making. But I think about that. I'm like, holy shit, that would really suck if I had to switch and go on to a generic.
Yes. Okay. So basically, to give you a quick background, I'm 57 years old. I started taking Propecia literally the day it came out in like January of '98.
Yeah.
So I was 38 years old. So I started on the brand. And anyway, I was shedding somewhat. And so I started taking Propecia at age 38 when it came out. I think it was approved like 97.
It was approved in December of 1997.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And in January of '98, I think it went on the market. I got it filled immediately.
Right.
So I started taking it, and because I saw it on the news. And anyway, I started taking it, and I had good results. The shedding, it didn't stop, but it did slow down.
Right.
I got a little bit of regrowth. Anyway, and I was just kind of hit cruise control. I was on it for up until about 3 or 4 years ago. About how long ago did the generic come out?
Generic came out
10 years ago?
Yeah, well, no, not 10 years. Let's see. The generic for Proscar came out 10 years ago.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Generic for Propecia, I forgot, but yeah.
I think it came out in like 2013 maybe.
For Proscar or Propecia?
Propecia.
Yeah, Propecia maybe 2013 or 2014, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So when it came out, I was paying the pharmacy for. Well, actually, I actually was getting the 180, and I was paying like $500 or something for the 180.
Yeah.
The pharmacy, and then when I got the generic, I called Costco, and I said, "Generic just came out. How much is that?" And it was like $200. It was about half the price.
Right.
So I said, so basically, I wasn't ordering it online. I wasn't ordering it from some underground basement. I was ordering it from Costco. It was pretty reputable.
Right.
So basically, the brand that they carried was Dr. something. I forget the last
Dr. Reddy.
Dr. Reddy.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So basically that's the brand I got. So I started on their generic, and I thought, I'm saving $20 a month, and I was really excited I was going to save the money. And within 3 months, I started noticing a huge increase in the shedding.
Yeah, I mean, you're excited to save like the cost of a drink.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So basically, I'm like, shit, I don't believe I did this. I thought, damn it, just to go with, and so basically I Googled the pharmaceutical company that Costco was carrying for the generic, and it was a pretty reputable pharmaceutical company. And so I thought so when I started noticing the increase in shedding, which was noticeable, I immediately stopped, totally, completely stopped the generic, went back on the Propecia, that was 3 years ago, and I called my doctor and said, I don't want to do generic, put me back on the brand name, which he did.
Mm-hmm.
And I immediately started back. My shedding has decreased a little bit, but it's definitely a lot more shedding 3 years later, meaning continuously over the past 3 years than it was on the generic. So my question is, does going off of something like Propecia, because you figure I was on it from 98 through 2013 with excellent results, and then I went off it for 3 months and went on the generic, then went back on the brand, but I'm not getting the same results. So can that interrupt the hair cycle to where it actually will not kick back in? Or?
Well, I mean, I will say again, I'm prefacing by saying I'm not a doctor. You can definitely interrupt the hair cycle. However, in 3 years, I mean, you should be at a point where it should be, back to a stabilized cycle. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Too.
Yeah, but everybody is different. But there's no doubt that you kind of jolted your body, and it's not. I'll give you an example. I know a guy who started on brand name Propecia. He has switched from different generic to different generic. He's had no issues at all. It's just the way that it is. But I know a lot of guys like you. Now, usually, the stories that we hear through this broadcast and from the guys who write us, the shedding. Once they get back on the brand name, they kind of go back to baseline to where they were before they got off of it. It doesn't seem like that's
Correct.
the case with you. But what you're saying is, I mean, do you see that the hair is kind of still maintaining, or are you just noticing more shedding? Are you losing ground, bigger balding spot, or more just thinning?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So yeah, so basically it's receding back. And with the Propecia, it had kind of stabilized. It was still receding, but not a lot.
Did you happen to add any, you happen to be put on any other medications during the time between the time you stopped using Propecia and no?
Yes. So basically, I kind of did my own troubleshooting. I thought, is there something I'm taking, a vitamin, an herb, something that maybe is blocking the absorption? Because to me, that was the number one thing I thought of, is that my body is not absorbing it as it was before. And I looked over the 3 months that I was on the generic when I had stopped the brand name, and there was nothing I had changed. I tried to look over my entire life, like what have I changed over the past 3 months? Nothing came up. I was still taking the same vitamins, same herbs. I hadn't really changed anything in my life, and there was no new medications that I was on. And that kind of follows into my next question: what drugs interact with Propecia or block absorption? Do you think?
Well, at least according to the physician's desk reference, there's no contraindication for use with any drug, even alcohol. Now, there was a recent study that came out saying that men who drank, I think it was, I don't know, it wasn't even that much. It was like more than like 3 drinks a day. Who are using? Yeah, think about that shit. Who are using finasteride may develop a more of an aggressive form of prostate cancer if they have prostate cancer. So, I mean, once I got that news, I was just like, all right, well, I've been doing it for so long, I'm not going to stop now. But that's really the only thing, and it's relatively recent, that seems to interact adversely with the drug. And what I mean by that is, I mean guys who are considered to be heavy drinkers while using finasteride. But it doesn't seem like there's any correlation between absorption rate of the drug, and there are no other drugs that I'm aware of that interact in an adverse way with finasteride. But again, I'm not a doctor.
Yeah. I definitely understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But, so that was the first thing, because back when minoxidil came out, I think in the 80s, when that came out in 93, meaning 5 years before I started Propecia, my hairline had just receded a little bit, and I was, and basically I was thinking to myself, I think what I'm going to do, and I'll never forget when this happened, but I thought, I think I'm going to get the minoxidil and kind of regain back that 1/4 inch of my hairline that had receded. I was like 33, and I thought, you know what, even though it's hardly anything, this minoxidil is going to grow it back, I thought. So I went down and got it filled, and I followed the directions, rubbed it into the scalp, and I forget what it was.
And you started to shed.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is that was within 2 months, my hair started to shed.
Yeah.
And I contacted the company. Actually, I talked to the pharmacist who made that. Upjohn, was that Upjohn?
At the time, it was Upjohn. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, I actually called Upjohn in New Jersey. I live in California. I called Upjohn in New Jersey, and I talked with them, and it was kind of an anecdotal thing that I was telling them. But they did take the notes. They did listen to what I had to say, and they did document it. And they said they would put it in their research or whatever. And then I immediately stopped the minoxidil. And, the interesting thing about that, and that's why I asked about interrupting the hair cycle, in 93, I was hardly shedding at all. It's just my hairline had receded.
Right.
In 93, that's when, after using the minoxidil, I stopped it after a month. My shedding up until this morning has continued,
right.
Meaning from 93 till now, which I guess I can't complain because I still have hair. But,
right.
But
it's obviously a very slow shed.
Yeah.
So my question, and I understand that, but my question is, in that regard, at least, are you sure it's just not normal hair growth cycles of anagen, catagen, telogen, as opposed to hair loss from DHT?
Oh, you mean just like from stress? You mean, or
No, like normal?
No. I mean, just
normal,
every day people shed
Oh,
a couple hundred hairs a day normally without actually losing hair.
No, yeah. So basically, we're talking about balding, meaning the hairline's gone back. It's gone back 3 inches. Yeah, no, it's definitely, and plus also I come from a family with, we have strong pattern of baldness. So, in fact, I've got 2 brothers, and this is, obviously with case studies, they probably hold each brother up next to each other, and my 2 other brothers are completely bald. And they asked me, God, how come you still have hair? And so I'm like, well, I take Propecia, but apart from that, I just happen to be a lucky one. But still, though, I have noticeably receding hairline. And
it's probably not apart from that. It's probably, you started using it relatively early on in your, hair loss process. You're also using, well, I guess minoxidil you stopped early. I mean, for me, minoxidil or Rogaine, and I was using it before it was approved, it gave me some time. It actually did help me at the very beginning. So I was one of the lucky ones who responded and kind of probably caught my hair loss in an anagen phase. And it just continued on in that anagen phase. And I never went through a major minoxidil shed, thank God. Now, I did go through a finasteride shed or a Proscar shed, which at the time, when both you and I started using this, and I started using it before you, I started using it as Proscar probably 93 or 94, I think, or 94, I think it was. There was nothing in the literature. There was nothing online. You knew nothing about the so-called dread shed. So I actually thought that the drug stopped working for me after about 5 or 6 months because I got such immediate results within 3 months. And then I started to go through this massive shed. I upped my dose from 5 milligrams a day all the way up to 7.5 milligrams a day with still no adverse side effects. And, I've been very fortunate. But I will say that even in my situation, being on the drug for well over 20 years now, I've lost ground. I, did not have to paint my bald spot when I started, and now I do. It's just the way that it is. But it's been a very slow process. So while it's continued to work for me, I still have lost ground over the last 20 years.
Yeah. Okay. So the term dread shed, what is that with Propecia? I've never heard of it.
Well, you said that you'd shed initially when you started taking Propecia. That's what it is. Basically, it kicks your hair into a telogen phase.
Yeah. No. Okay. No. So basically, for me, with minoxidil, I did, and that's why I stopped with. And that's why I stopped with Rogaine.
All right. I thought you said you had the same experience or somewhat of the same experience with finasteride as well. You didn't. So right away it just worked for you.
Correct. Yeah.
That's
so
great.
Basically for me it did. No, it actually stopped working. I had mentioned when I started the generic.
Right. No, I get that. Well, here's the thing. I mean, we can't give you any definitive answers except that, there could be a coincidental phenomenon happening. It could be that, for whatever reason, we're dealing with hormones here. Once you kind of made that switch, you were kind of riding this wave, and maybe you would have ridden it for a little while longer, and you would have started to see a decline even on brand name. We just don't know. But
exactly,
the interruption definitely doesn't. It probably doesn't sit well with you because in your mind you probably think, "Shit, I caused this."
Well, you know what? That's exactly. I think there's nothing I can do now going back, but obviously the only thing I can do is continue on the brand and continue taking it. So
right, and you could also talk to your doctor, and I would about considering upping the dosage if you are not concerned about that, and seeing how you do. I mean,
that was my thought exactly.
Yeah, there are. I happen to believe, and you're going to hear me say this a million times. I have to. Let me preface it by saying I'm not a physician or giving medical advice, but I do believe that finasteride is dose dependent. Even though everything in the literature will tell you differently, every doctor will say that's not the case. And
my experience with that, actually, and I'm not a doctor, I'm not a physician, I'm not giving medical advice. My experience over the years has actually reinforced that it is dose dependent. I've seen it in several patients.
Yeah.
Okay, so, of course, I know you need to preface it for legal reasons. So basically, in your own particular situations, how much are you taking right now?
Me?
As far as yeah.
I take 5 milligrams once a week. I take a one 5 milligram tab. I actually do it after the show, once a week.
Wow.
And I take a quarter tablet of ProScar Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Interesting. So now, why don't instead of taking it per day, how come you take it at the intervals you do?
Well, what I chose to do as I started to realize I was doing well on the drug, and finasteride came out in the 1 milligram form being sold as Propecia. When I started, no one really knew how much to take. So there was a 5 milligram tablet of this drug, and people were taking 5 milligrams for benign prostate hyperplasia. I just assumed, I'm going to take one a day because that's how it's being prescribed for BPH. Once they lowered the dose to 1 milligram a day, I'm like, I don't want to just stop taking 5 milligrams a day, so I decided to taper. And then I started to basically do intermittent therapy, where I would take 1 5 milligram dose every other day, and I kind of experimented to see how low I can go while maintaining the results that I have. And what I found was that, and there's a couple of things that happen to your body when you take this drug. And one thing is, once you load up on the drug, you can essentially maintain your lowered DHT levels for about 2 weeks. So if that's the case, my reasoning was, let me see if I could just take one tablet once a week to maintain the DHT levels that I have now. And with that said, I'm getting probably a little less than 1 milligram a day, and I only have to take the product once a week, and I've been able to maintain for the most part. I mean, there's been a very slow progression. At this point, I'm not, every once in a while I'll pop an extra tab because I'm not sure if I remember to take it on Tuesday. So there's some weeks I'm taking 10 milligrams a week, and there's some weeks I'm taking 5 milligrams a week. But in general, for me, it's been I've had a lot of success with what's known as intermittent therapy. In your case, it seems like you might want to consider talking to your doctor about upping the dosage. And again, not medical advice, but I would talk to my doctor about that.
Yeah, so basically, I know you can't give advice, but still, though, so you're thinking that maybe for some people, like maybe in my situation, even though I know you're not prescribing this and you're not a physician, you're thinking that maybe 2 milligrams a day might be good.
I'm thinking, that you can talk to your doctor about maybe just doing like 1 1/4 tablets a day, or 1 1/2 tablets a day.
The other question is, go ahead.
Sorry, let me jump in. I was going to say one option you can consider, and also speak about this with your doctor, is to switch to ProScar, which is a 5 milligram tablet. Quarter that tablet and take 1/4 a day, which is roughly 1.25. Which is maybe less scary for you than going for 2 tablets of Propecia at 2 milligrams, or trying to cut a Propecia tablet.
And it'll also it'll end up being a lot less expensive.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, yeah, so basically for me, the side effects, I've had no side effects at all, and I'm totally fine with it.
Yeah.
So quite honestly, I think what I would probably do, honestly, is I would just get a prescription for the generic. And then I would take the brand name and the generic, because the brand, the generic, amazingly, I called Costco the other day about something, and just for the hell of it, I asked them the price on the generic. It was like nothing. It's
but you just said you're just telling us this you started the entire story saying that you stopped Propecia, you started using a generic, and your hair fell out. So why would you even reintroduce that shit into your body if that was the case?
Well, see, the reason, okay, so basically my reasoning was, as far as the generic goes, I'm thinking I stopped the brand name, maybe the generic just was not as potent as the 1 milligram had been for me. So if the generic was even half as potent, let's say 0.5, then what I would do is I would just take the generic with the other one. You follow me?
What I would say is that would definitely be an interesting experiment that we'd all like to hear about, so you can call back and let us know. My advice would be to maybe take Joe's advice and just get on 5 milligram brand name ProScar. Talk to your doctor about it. You are how old? 56 years old?
57.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly cannot endorse insurance fraud, but I mean, a man your age would have no problem putting that in through his health insurance.
Correct.
But
you're right. That's a good idea.
It's not something. It's not something that I would do, but there are plenty of people that do that.
And just to go back to that generic and name brand intake idea that you were mentioning, I think that what you need to understand about the generic, potentially about the generic, is that it's not that it's so much a reduced amount of finasteride. It could be a reduced amount. It could be an ineffective formulation completely. It could be a reduced effectiveness formulation. The point is that it's not something that is quantifiable. So because it's an inconsistent potential product, and not talking about anything specific as far as specific generics, but because it's just a big question mark. You don't know if it's an inconsistent mixture in that batch. You don't know if it's an inconsistent protocol at the manufacturer. You know nothing about why it may not be as effective. So I think that sticking to the name brand and upping with the name brand instead of reintroducing a generic is not.
Probably the best way to go.
It just adds more questions to an issue that already has questions, and I don't think that you want to really mess with that. I think just stick with what we know or what you know, and that way you're reducing all the variables of is this generic effective or not.
All right, man.
Very quick question. Yes, something else I was thinking was getting my DHT levels checked. Is that something you do or you don't?
Well, you've already been on finasteride for forever. So I mean, it may not even be worth. It may not even be worthwhile. I mean, you could get a baseline now and see if, in fact, once you add or go to a different dose, to see if it changes. So I mean, you can do it.
Yeah, one other quick question. As far as DHT, of course, I know this is everything in this entire hair cycle has to do with DHT levels. Does sexual activity increase your DHT levels? So my question is, if you have more, and this is maybe another question you've answered 1 billion times to callers, but if somebody is more sexually active, are their DHT levels usually higher because more testosterone, or it does not affect hair loss?
Well, theoretically, that's the case, and there's a lot of talk about that on message forums. There have been some doctors who make these claims, but I mean, when you talk about more sexual, a lot of guys in their mind think that there's a difference between masturbating and having sex. There is no difference. So whether you're actually having sex, or you're actually, or if that's what you're talking about, or actually just doing it yourself, I would say that most guys are pretty sexual in general, whether they're having sex with somebody else or having sex with themselves. Exactly. So I kind of think that that's one of the things that God gave us that's truly just for us and pleasurable. There's no point in trying to avoid that just to save a few hairs. But there is some theory that, your testosterone levels do spike. So theoretically, if the 5-alpha reductase inhibitor isn't inhibiting 5-alpha reductase type 2 as well, you're going to have an increase in dihydrotestosterone. So yes, it's possible. They say the same thing about working out. You know what? I'm not going to stop fucking, and I'm not going to stop working out.
And I think that it's a complete it's a definition of irony if you're avoiding sex because you don't want to increase your testosterone, therefore your dihydrotestosterone levels, because it'll increase your hair loss because you're trying to keep your hair loss so you can have more sex.
No, okay, no. So okay,
or a lot of guys. I mean, that's what a lot of guys are saying. It's like, well, I don't want to lose my hair because I want to keep getting laid, right?
Yeah.
It's like, well, it's just self-defeating. So.
Yeah, but still, though, there's that saying like, I think it's there's a saying, use it or lose it. But for me personally, if I have sex, whether with myself or somebody else 7 days a week, I tend to want to keep having sex every day.
Mm-hmm.
And for me personally, this is my own experience, I can cut back to 3 times a week, which is totally okay with me. I'm still having sex, but just not every day. And so basically, if my DHT levels or my testosterone levels will drop, I'll cut to every other day. It's not a big deal.
Yeah. As long as you don't start calling yourself every day and start stalking yourself, then it should be okay.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I honestly, I think I listen, again, not a doctor. I actually think that's one of the bigger myths out there when it comes to hair loss. Theoretically, yeah, you are spiking your testosterone levels, but it's for a relatively short period of time. If you're having sex 10 times a day, maybe, there could be a problem. I don't know. But that wouldn't even be a concern. Not even a concern. The fact that you're 56 years old and still wanting to have sex every day, you should feel blessed.
Yeah. Oh, no, actually more than once a day. So it's like, no, I'm fine. But
yeah.
And the other thing is, as far as taking the Propecia, is there a better time of day to take it, or?
Jesus, this guy's got a lot of fucking questions. Dude.
I got tons of them. You know what?
My preference is at night.
Mine's in the morning.
Yeah, a lot of guys, and they'll take it in the morning. Basically your DHT levels, your testosterone levels are highest in the morning. So, in theory, some guys want to take it when their testosterone levels are highest. I don't think it really makes a difference.
As long as it's consistent each day.
Yeah.
That's what matters.
Yeah.
And with food or without food?
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. And again, we're not doctors, but I just, sometimes I don't even take it with water. I'm able to swallow pills without even drinking water, so.
Okay, and then something else.
Because that's just how he rolls.
Dude, we got to take another phone call, dude.
Okay, good. Okay, thanks.
All right, dude. Listen, call back next week. We'll be live, and we'll answer some more questions, all right?
Okay, thanks.
Okay, good luck. Take care. 888-659-3727. Let's see who this is. Hey, you are on the air. Who's this, and where are you calling from?
Hello, Spencer.
Hello.
I have a question.
Yes.
I have one question. Do chicks with dicks raise their DHT level? Because I'm not stopped chick with dicks. I won't stop.
My name is
Joe from Staten Island.
My name is. Excuse me. My name is.
Would you like to reiterate it?
My name is.
Have you heard it? Excuse me.
My name is.
Joe from Staten Island.
I mean, it's so rare that we get to play that anymore. So
I miss it.
Yeah, so not Joe from Staten Island. Welcome.
Excuse me, just 30 more seconds. I'm not going to stop chick with dicks. DHT.
I don't think you should. I mean, I think that's that's your proclivity.
Good word.
Yeah, proclivity. There it is. Better than chicks with dicks. I don't even know if that's one word. It's hyphenated, right?
I would say it'd be chicks with dicks.
Yeah, I was going to say cranks. We usually try to do that, but then I heard you start dropping the F-bombs again. I don't know where you are.
Yeah, you know what? I say chick with cranks because I just think it's funnier than chicks with dicks. But, I mean, the world knows what chicks with dicks are. So I understand why you said that. I just, chicks with cranks.
You got to crank them up. You got to crank them up. I get it.
It's a crank. You got. We're dudes. We got cranks, man.
I really enjoyed that last phone caller. I don't mean to bash on him, man. There was a lot of questions.
Holy shit!
When I called you, I was like, "Oh shoot! I can finally get a phone call." I haven't called in a few
I'm telling
weeks,
you, I thought that's actually Joe. That's actually Joe's real voice. That's Joe.
Yeah, that was Joe. Yeah.
He
did have a lot of questions, but they were good questions.
Yeah, all of a sudden he becomes like this really articulate guy from like Connecticut.
and he knows how to keep you on the hook. That was Joe's specialty, man.
Let me just ask you one more question for the 30th time.
You know what's funny? When I was on radio, I would had a producer, and the producer, like, his thing was he wanted me to get, because back then we actually used to get a lot of phone calls from all over the country, and he wanted me to like rush through these calls. I'm like, these guys are calling a hair loss show. You know, they're not trying to win tickets to to REO Speedwagon. You know, I mean, these guys have serious questions.
You'd have to tell your program director, look, we're one step away from a suicide hotline. You know, I'll help you understand.
That's exactly right. Well, right now you're looking at the program director, so I don't have to worry about anything anymore.
I know, man. Isn't it nice? Isn't it lovely?
It is.
I mean, I worked in the radio station for just like maybe as an intern for like a couple months, and I saw all the rules they had to go through and all the stuff they had to go through. It's mind numbing. It's like, how do you even? It's like sticking a cattle product up your ass and then asking you to perform like a donkey. You know. And,
I will tell you that some of the. I'm sorry, Joe. Are you trying to do a joke there?
No. What?
Some of the dumbest people I've ever met worked in radio. Is that politically incorrect to say? Because
it's absolutely true, man. It's absolutely true. Like it's people that, I mean, there are people that are just party people who met somebody and said, oh yeah, you know what, this guy's a party guy, he knows a lot of people and blah blah blah, and they put him on the air and they act like ass clowns and they don't care, you know. I feel really bad because when I was an intern, there was this guy and he was a nice guy, but he was murder on the air, just murder. He would sit there. He would never edit his calls. He would never even, what do you call it?
Screen.
What do they call it when they screen them at all? And it would just be dead air, and these people would ask, like really kind of like, not like the guy last time, but they would just kind of drag on. And it was a radio station. It wasn't a talk show.
Right.
He's just supposed to play, music. And one time I was with the guy I was interning with, and I was like, have you heard this guy on the air? And he goes, no. I go, man, I mean, like, all these rules you're telling me, how come he doesn't have to follow them? Because what are you talking about? And I go, just listen to him. And like, he couldn't find a time to listen to him. I go, all right, I'm going to call in. So I called in, and I just was acting like a caller, and I was like going, hi, could you play this song? And I acted like I didn't know the name, and I was very vague. And he was like, is it this one? I'm like, I don't think so. And then he stayed on the phone for like 5 minutes. Finally, I go, I think that's the song. He finally played the song. I called back. I go, no, that wasn't the song. It was a good song though.
And that DJ's name was Ryan Seacrest.
That was Casey.
Dude, I felt bad because I didn't mean to get him fired. He got fired.
Really?
I was trying to, and I was just playing like, because the DJ.
Do you know how difficult it is? Unless the radio station is really tanking, you know how difficult it is to get fired?
Oh man, yeah, I imagine. I
mean, radio today, everyone's getting fired, but back in the day, you really had to be bad, in my view. Especially if they gave the opportunity and gave you that time slot. That means that they had enough confidence in you to think that you were going to. I mean, you had to get really shitty ratings.
Well, I don't know about his ratings. I just know that it was brutal. It was brutal to listen to his radio show. Like whatever you're trying to do, is, as a DJ, is to keep it entertaining or at least play the music. You don't even have to be entertaining,
Yeah.
You're the music is entertainment, and it was ridiculous. But right when I called you, I was washing my car, and I was like, man, I got to get this phone call in before you guys get off the air. And I was hoping that, I'd have a little time to, finish my car wash. And that guy, he had a lot of questions, so I was like, I was totally able to get it done. And
so you're able to wax it too?
Yeah.
Dude,
he painted it.
I got into the hubcaps, everything, man. I was like,
Earl Shives.
Dude, it's looking like Cruiser's car right now. And then there's a little Latin girl next door, and she was washing her car.
Nice.
And I was like, man, maybe I have time to get this girl's phone number.
Yeah.
And I was talking to her, and she, but she had one of these, like, tall tale sign that she has a boyfriend is when they pull up in, like, a lowrider, what do you call it, pickup truck.
Yeah, well, that's not a good sign, period. You don't want to screw with that. The neck tattoo and the lowrider, guy, friend, boyfriend, that's not good.
The neck ink.
Yeah.
The neck ink.
So I opted not to do that because I didn't want you to get on the line and hear me get my ass beat.
Yeah.
That wasn't really in a particularly good part of town either. But I called because I miss you guys. I haven't talked to you in a while, but I also wanted to say that, I told you a while back about a friend who used to make fun of me when we were really young, saying that I was going to go bald because I always had a big forehead, right?
Yeah.
And
the doctor, he's a doctor.
The doctor, yeah. He turned out to be to go like literally horseshoe bald, and I brought it up, and this is just for your listeners to get me caught up. I brought it up to him in private, and he goes, "Oh man, that really bit me in the ass." And then I go, and I felt bad, and so I said, "Don't worry about it, dude. I have lost some hair, and it's, it's something that we all go through, because I felt bad after we brought it up, even though I wasn't, jabbing him."
Yeah.
Then at the dinner table in front of his whole family, he goes, "Well, Steven, you say you're going bald."
Yeah, you told me that.
Okay, so that's just to get your whole audience.
Yeah.
So anyways, so after that, I came back home. He lives in another state. I came back home, and my Propecia, my ProScar prescription ran out. And he's a doctor, and I've always thought, man, did I have it right here? I don't have to schedule an appointment. I don't have to do anything. I just have to ask him.
Right.
And I had always been afraid to ask him. And remember how I brought up find a balding buddy? Well,
right.
He's not my balding buddy. My balding buddy is another guy, another state,
Right.
Moved away. And so, and since he obviously can't keep his mouth shut, I really don't feel good. But I said, screw it, man. I said, screw it. And I called him up and I go, hey, so wondering if you could write me a prescription. and he goes, yeah, well, for what for, man? I don't really throw out prescriptions just because. I go, well, I've already been kind of taking it for a while. And he goes, what's it called? I almost said his name.
Yeah.
It's called, I don't want to look like you. And he goes, what are you talking about? I go, oh, it's just ProStar. But they do have a little label on the package that says, his name. And he's like, you fucker. But anyways, he wrote me a prescription. So now I have I think an unlimited source of prescription for that.
Oh, that's great.
Nice.
Dude, I'm shooting it up intravenously. I'm putting it up my ass. I'm putting ProScar everywhere, dude.
Dude, this guy, the question guy, who, by the way, we're just busting your balls, so feel free to call back, dude. But, this guy's been on the drug since 1998. No adverse side effects. He's talking about he's so concerned about his hair loss, he's considering having less sex, and he's 56 years old.
See, that's it. Well, the whole thing about the ironic thing about, the adverse side effects, whether they're as bad as people say they are, or if they, whatever, is that you can't get hard and your lack of sex, your sex desire diminishes. And the thing is that I'm totally with you. I'm not going to stop fucking.
No.
I don't want to lose ability of my penis. I haven't lost it. I've been taking it.
Right.
The worst thing is trying to find a girl that actually can entice me these days.
Right.
A lot of girls, they give you a headache and you just don't want to do it. You say, there's porn at home. Just walk away from this one. It's like,
dude, let me tell you, Joe knows, as I said this before. I mean, I'm gonna, if whatever happens with common law, I mean, if things don't work out, I'm going to opt out, man. I'm going to, just, maybe get some, chick in Costa Rica for, just travel around. And there is no way. I have an office here now. You're watching the show out of Beverly Hills. And so I'm here a lot. And it is insane, first of all, the level of, good-looking women out here, talent. However, the level of crazy. And I'm like, there is no fucking way. I would never get involved with any woman from this area in a million years.
Dude, I mean, the more amazing their bodies look and the more beautiful they are on their face, I hate to say it, the more I'm sitting there going, how much crazy do I have to deal with to get into that?
Well, here's the thing.
And I hate to objectify women like that, but honestly, they do objectify us,
Who gives a shit? That's what I mean. We have to be politically correct about that shit, but they can.
Why do we have to apologize? Because our bodies want them, sexually or anything, anyway.
But here's the thing. To me, in my mind, women like that are easier to get because these women, because they're so beautiful, they're even more insecure because they have lower self-esteem because if anything is wrong, if they see a pimple, if they see a little bit of cellulite, they are fucking freaked out. You know, it's these women who are kind of like, they're so full of themselves. They're like maybe 5s and 6. They're a little overweight. And they're like, I mean, they're trying to go for Brad Pitt. You're like, what the fuck is going on here? They're large and in charge, and they got confidence and all that shit. I'm just like, well, good for you. But I mean, it's such a backwards world. Guys are afraid to approach the 10s. To me, I'd much rather get rejected by a 10 than a 5. So there's no.
And the 5's probably more likely to reject you.
That's right. So there's no going. You go for the 10s no matter. And if you just keep going, eventually, you're gonna get one. But you're gonna get a whole lot of crazy with that 10.
Exactly. Well, I just helped this girl move, and she had a couple of guys with her. And there was like 3 other guys, and none of us know each other. We're all looking at each other like, how many of us have fucked this girl? Because we don't know each other. Yeah. And we're all moving for this girl, and she has huge tits. And I'm like, and I just put it out there. I go, man, I wish I had huge tits. I get my apartment moved real quick. And they all started laughing, right? And so one of her girlfriends show up, and she's like literally to me a 6, maybe. I mean, like out of her best, like 7 maybe, right? And she's got this like attitude, like she's a Playboy playmate.
Oh yeah,
and she's just firing off the mouth, right, left and right. I'm sweating in the sun, pulling up boxes and everything. And despite of what I said, this girl is a friend. I wouldn't do it if it's a friend, just because she's got a decent body doesn't mean I'm gonna help her move. I help guys move too, but I'm sitting here moving. This girl starts firing off the mouth, and she's like, I can't remember what the shit she was flipping at me, but she was saying something to me. And I said, hey, moving usually requires more of your legs than your mouth. And then she goes, but at least I'm cute though.
She said, at least I'm cute though?
She goes, yeah, but at least I'm cute. Because all she's doing is standing by the truck as guys are moving the shit back and forth, right?
Yeah.
And I took every ounce of me not to say the rudest thing. But what I did say, I go, well, time's working against you.
Well, first of all, I have a little secret for you guys. I don't care how close I am to somebody. I will not help you move. That is my one rule. That is my line in the fucking sand. I'll give you the shirt off my back, but I'm not going to help you move.
That it comes with 2 things: age and money. I'm telling you, my other friend is just like that. I don't begrudge you of that.
Yeah.
But it's like if you made a little life for yourself and it's decent, and then you start to get to a certain. And I don't mean like you're too old to move shit. You're obviously fit enough to move. I'm saying you're old enough and you're wise enough to know that your time is better spent doing other shit.
Right.
And and moving is the worst shit. Why are you going to bring me down with it?
Absolutely.
You're not going to do it. And I'm borderline there, but I'm just kind of a sucker to help people. But one of my friends is just like that. And when it came to, I helped him move. When it came time for me to move, he literally shot me a text in the morning going, where you at? I'm going to send some movers. He's like, I'm going to buy movers for you.
Dude, I'll tell you this. I would find some kid and pay him $200 and say, this guy needs a mover. He needs someone to help him move. And that's it. You find some Russian kid, some strong Russian kid.
I just look at it as a situation where I'm not going to break something and get blamed for it.
Yeah, well, that's true. Right? But yeah, full head of hair. I actually had to. Well, it's a story I'll save. I'll tell you. I'll tell you when I come to the restaurant.
All right.
I'm not going to say it on the air. What did you say?
I said if you ever do it again, I haven't seen you in a while.
I will. For crying out loud.
That girl that comes in with that guy, I think the guy replaced her. I haven't seen her come in a while.
You're kidding me.
The one who was flirting with you?
Yeah.
And now, how is this? How's her replacement?
I think the other one's better for sure.
Yeah.
No, this to answer his question. This is the girl that I met on a date, and we liked each other, but she thought that my position. She didn't really say it. She was very polite, but basically, I'm a struggling actor in L.A.
Yeah.
And she thought that my position out here was, she was basically looking for a more established, person, and then she walks into my restaurant in a bar with a guy who's bald and got a lot of money, and
right.
it's like, and it's like I'm not making fun of that he's bald, but it was actually more of an inspirational story. When all else fails, make money, guys.
Well, first of all, you got to do that anyway. That's the thing about life anyway. I don't care what anybody says. Money's not important, this and that. But money doesn't buy happiness. So I'll tell you what. You know what? It's a lot better to be depressed with some dollars in your pocket than to be broke and depressed. That's it. You're gonna be balding. You're gonna be dealing with all kinds of shit anyway. You might as well have some coin. And people, they think. I think a lot of people think that it's just so unattainable to get to a position in life where you're just comfortable. You know, everyone is living paycheck to paycheck. I understand that. You know, I was in that position at one point in my life too, but I actually started very young as an entrepreneur. So, you know, I've been very fortunate. But money does mean something, man. And I have to tell you that, sadly, when it comes to women, really, we are as men, we are able to get what do I want to say? As far as the hotness of women, we're able to get what we could afford. So you know, if there's some guy out there who's a decent-looking guy, but he's walking around with a 4, he's fucking broke. That's just the way that it is. And then you see plenty of guys who are average or less attractive who are with these 10s, and you know they're doing something with their lives.
They're loaded.
Yeah. And it's even beyond the money, I think, for these women. They like the prestige. They like the day-to-day shit. They like the attention. They like driving in nice cars. They like, you know.
Yeah, the money.
Well, they like the money. They do like, but they like the lifestyle. They like
all the trappings that come with money.
The trappings, exactly. You know, they like pulling up to the valet.
It's survival of the fitness. It's, you know, the whole hunter-gatherer syndrome. You know, the guy with the money, you know, is the one who's bringing home the most game, and that, you know, appeals biologically to women because they want to nurture their children and have the best chance of, you know, the human survival. That's where it kind of basically all comes from. But we can break through all that now because we have, you know, intellect and intelligence, and we don't have to go out and do all the things we have to do. But unfortunately,
and we have Tinder.
Have this. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I know what you're going to say, though. Yeah. So listen, did you have anything else you wanted to add? Because we're going to call it a night.
Oh no, goodbye. I'm not going to ask you 3 more questions.
Yeah, I got some news to share with you, not Joe. I just got my first voiceover gig. It's going to be national. Congratulate me.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Now fuck you.
You know what he did? he actually filled out the forms on time.
Yeah, exactly. I filled out the forms on time.
One of those jobs. Whoever gets to us quick gets this job. Well, that's good, man. That doesn't matter because, you know, you still got to produce and you know, have you acted before or no?
In college, but this is kind of funny. Just a quick story. A buddy of mine that used to be a roommate around when I was in college, we reconnected recently, and he asked me, "Did you ever do anything with that voiceover thing?" Because I wanted to get into it many years ago, and he happens to be a content creator. He happens to have a video production company, and within 3 hours, this is like messages back and forth on Facebook. He's like, "Would you be interested in reading for a voiceover?" I'm like, "Sure." So he sent me the video and the script. He said, "You know, do this." I'm like, "All right." I did it, and then and he's like, "Yeah, sounds great, whatever." 2 weeks went by, and I didn't hear anything. And he just contacted me today and said, "Yeah, the client loves it. It's going national next week." I was like, "What?"
That's incredible, man. So soon you're going to be in the Canadian version of SAG. And is there one?
Yeah, there is. Actually, I think it's the same SAG. Actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say that you just add an F, and. All right, Not Joe. Listen, it's great hearing from you, and we'll talk soon. And I'll see you at the restaurant.
Okay. All right. Usually weekends. All
right, man.
Saturday, Sunday or Monday. Okay.
All right, man. You take care. Bye-bye.
See you.
You too. Bye.
I don't know. We got a guy holding on from a 604 area code.
That's here.
Yeah.
That's Vancouver.
It's already 10 minutes after. All right. Let's do it. Let's take it. Hey, man, you're on the air. Who's this, and where are you calling from?
Victor from Vancouver.
Victor from Vancouver. How are you, man?
Hello, Victor.
Good, thanks. You guys recognize me?
I do. I recognize your voice. How many Victors from Vancouver do I? Actually, I know another one.
I gave myself away. All right.
Yeah.
A tough act to follow. Other guys are pretty impressive speakers. Anyway, just wanted to share my experiences before hair transplantation with non-surgical methods.
Okay.
And so it was pretty awful because you're 21 years old. You go to one of these places and they take hair samples. They wrap around your head to take a form, a mold.
Yeah.
And apparently they send it off somewhere. I think it's in Asia, and they have the hair donors there. So you pay through the nose for human hair. Like in 1982, you're talking $4,000.
Well, here's the reason. Yeah. Here's the reason why. And yeah, I mean, most of these companies to this day, the hair is made in China. Labor, especially back then, was very cheap. It's not quite as cheap as it was back then. It's actually a lot more expensive. And yes, I mean, a lot of the hair that you're getting, even that's made in China, is not. It's Asian hair, but it's Indian hair. It's not Chinese hair.
In any case, you pay quite a bit of money for human hair, and they give you the option of getting this synthetic stuff, which they say is actually superior because it holds its color and its curl and so forth. And I had actually both before the transplants. What I wanted to say was, the experience is you get all this. You're not totally bald yet, but when you go in there, they shave the top of your head right to zero.
Right.
So you're already screwed because you can't. You put this thing on, you go, my goodness.
Well, they give you the bozo cut because they lock in there. They actually will turn you around in the chair away from the mirror before they shave your head. I don't know if you experienced that. And then they're like, we're doing some clipping.
I watched them do it, and I cried inside. But so it looked okay, but it was way too much hair. Suddenly you're a mop top.
Right.
Okay, so then you get accustomed to that, and I sort of tricked myself and my peers a little bit, I guess, maybe. Knowing it was coming, I let my beard grow out so I looked like a wild man, and I shaved it off.
Right.
So they kind of distracted a little bit.
Right.
Anyway, at your 21, 22 years of age, so after this, then you got to live with the thing. So how this one worked was the reason they shaved it is not to glue it down, but there's surgical tape, double-edged 3M surgical tape on the front near the hairline. Well, that sticks to your skin where there was no hair. But everywhere else, they use these clips, which are borrowed from the hair extension industry. And so you can undo these clips on your own because you got to take it off to shampoo and so forth. So that was one of the big humiliations, taking it off every night as well. And I bought one of those styrofoam heads that women use for their wigs.
Right.
Park it. And looking at that every night, it wasn't exactly, a confidence builder.
That's just picturing that at the age of 21 or 22 is fucking horrifying.
Yes, but it led me down the hair transplant path, and that's where I said, you know what, I cannot do this. There's got to be something better. And so back then, of course, all they had was the round plugs. But you guys have mentioned this before. You look at the brochures, and I think Joe's mentioned on his website that the pictures they probably do. Back then, they probably retouched the pictures, but now I think they probably use concealers and they retouch the pictures to convince you that it's all perfect, because they had some pretty darn good looking results. Now, do you think they were falsifying things that much? Because I was trying to do the math in my head, going like, okay, so that guy is just bald and he had that much hair?
I'll tell you what, we're going to let Joe answer this question, then we have to call it a night because it's already 7:15. But Joe,
I know.
Sorry, Victor, are you talking about the old plug brochures?
He's talking about what's happening now.
Yeah, because the plugs were indiscernible in the photos.
Yeah.
Right, and there's carbon glass.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think one thing I know for a fact is that they were using the professional photos that were taken for these brochures, and I'm actually producing a video right now, or editing a video that I shot yesterday, where I'm talking about how to take photos, and what I was talking about, I partially touch on this in this new video where I'm talking about how flash photography can alter the reality of what is sitting on someone's head. And while I don't go further into detail in the video, I can tell you right now that even pluggy, unnatural looking hairlines can look a lot better with a really powerful, harsh flash from a camera. And back then, they almost had their own battery packs for the flashes. it can make a huge difference in the naturalness of how these things look. Was there makeup put in the hair to make it look better? I can't say one way or the other. Maybe it would make sense. I'd say that there was a lot fewer safeguards in place as far as ethics go when these things were being produced. I mean, it was a crazy time. And so to answer your question, I think there probably was some manipulation on some levels. Yeah.
But Victor's actually asking what's happening today as well.
Oh, today?
Well, and that's a shame that it continues to this day, though, because that's first order fraud, isn't it?
But that's the thing. Victor, let Joe answer the question, because it may continue in some cases, but for the most part, the only thing that's really continuing is there are guys, I believe, who still will put up pictures with patients wearing concealer, and there's a lot of adjustment to light and angles, but not as much, in my view, out and out tampering with the image by using what would now be Photoshop. Back then, it was retouching. So
yeah, I'll agree with with Spencer on that. It happens, but it's fairly rare. It's very rare. I have seen it. I have seen photos that are on clinical websites where they're showing a before and after, and I can clearly see that there's some sort of topic or a concealer that's in the hair. But one of the bigger issues that is very common in a lot of clinics that isn't really talked about. I'm pretty much the only person that's talked about it. I know Spencer talked about it in the past, but you don't see it anywhere else. That is the use of flash photography. That makes things completely different than what you see if they're walking down the street. Beyond that, it's rare to use Photoshop or retouching or concealers. It's not prevalent. Not like it used to be in brochures years ago.
All right, Victor. Listen, I hope that that gave you a little insight of what's happening today. It is still happening, and I tell you that in many cases, even some of the better clinics, and usually not clinics that are recommended. I mean, every once in a while, I'll have a clinic that is part of the IHS where I'll see an image and I'll have to contact them and say, you know what, you might want to try to get a better after image, as opposed to having something that bright or something that dark, just so that there's a real comparison there. But it's pretty unusual. But there are, like Joe said, I do see a lot of stuff, especially from the newer guys who are also using, certain devices. A lot of devices are being sold to non-core hair transplant surgeons, meaning, guys who are just kind of like dabbling in hair transplantation. And even some of the company photos I noticed that are being provided by the device makers are fucked up as far as their angles and their lighting is concerned. So it does happen. There is still a lot of, I don't know if it's necessarily, as blatant trickery as there was before, but, what Joe does and the information he puts out about before and after images, it's vital for any consumer. And I think what he's doing now in his next video is going to be important as well. So, Vic, I really appreciate the call. Good luck. Keep listening. Always welcome your call. And
thank you very much.
We'll talk to you later.
Thanks for calling.
All right. Take care. Good night. All right, guys. Good show. Thanks. We hung out a little late because we got some calls late. But let me give out the websites. Obviously, I'll plug Joe's website again. It's hair transplant. It's hairtransplantmentor.com. Check out Joe's Journey. Actually, that should be the name of the page. Joe's Journey. Joe's hair transplant journey. This is a guy who went, sadly, from a young man who got some pretty bad plugs, had to get corrective surgery, who is a guy now that appears, he doesn't, but he appears to have a full head of hair. And what he has on his head looks 100% natural. So, I mean, a lot of miracles can be worked if you find the right surgeon, if you make the right decisions, if you are the right candidate. But there does have to be, I'm not going to say a perfect storm situation to have a great hair transplant, but you really have to kind of understand, all of your, possible limitations and what your, how your hair characteristics and your skin characteristics and your choice in doctor can maybe lead you into a position where you have a better result. In some cases, like Joe says, and I say all the time, a lot of guys who may think they're candidates aren't candidates. So that's a great place to check out, get some information about hair transplantation, and contact Joe Tillman directly. That's hairtransplantmentor.com. Our website, thebaldtruth.com. You can check out archives of this broadcast on www.thebaldtruth.com. Also, excuse me, American Hair Loss Association, AmericanHairLoss.org. Check out the new IAHS website if you're interested in surgical hair restoration and hair transplant surgery. Founded the organization in 2001. I truly believe that this is in my view, the safest place to start to do your research when you are seriously researching surgeons for hair transplant surgery. So that's IAHRS.org. And of course, our message forum, which is baldtruthtalk.com. Interact with other hair loss sufferers. We do have segments of this broadcast in the hair transplant segments in the hair transplant section, and of course links to archives of this broadcast on baldtruthtalk.com as well. Joe, thanks a lot for the show. Next week, I am going to do my best to have you on camera. All right, so
we'll see about that.
We'll see what happens. Until then, be strong, God bless, and thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for any inconvenience you may have been put to prior to the program, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. And if you could now leave by the exits at the rear, that'd be splendid. Thank you. Good night.